This is the training module for the brutal facts. There's lots of ways of doing this. They get really complicated and some are going to be really simple. I'm trying to do it really simple. So here's the training. Let me switch over my video and you can follow along. All right. So the first thing is when we're doing the brutal facts, make sure everybody has a sheet of paper, just simple sheet like this. And what you want to do is you want to write brutal facts. And then put slash no place left at the top. You get a marker that actually works. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is I want you to put a number one right here. And then I want you to put population. And you're going to be writing this on the whiteboard, obviously. So you can be doing this, and then put a line right here. And then just ask everybody, what is the population for the place, the area in which we live, or where you live? And so for just the sake of simplicity, I'm gonna put 100,000. All right. And then put a line underneath population, right, like this, and put percentage of lostness. All right. And then ask them what they think the percentage of lostness is in their particular area in which they live. And this is always a fascinating conversation because I'm always kind of amazed at how high people shoot and how low people shoot. But the baseline for lostness in almost everywhere area of the United States is about 75%. That would be in the Bible Belt, like Alabama, Mississippi. And then it goes well into the high 90s when you go into frontier areas like Oregon, Vermont, New York, and places like that. But for the sake of argument today, we're just going to put 75% is the typical percentage of lostness in an area. Like again, that can go up significantly depending on the area of the United States. So we're going to put there's 75,000 people in your area based on and this number, if anyone asks, that number comes from the North American Mission Board that's done a number of, and several other mission agencies that do church planning in the United States. So question is 75,000 people. That's a lot of lostness. We have to ask the question, whose job or whose responsibility or privilege it is to get the gospel to these 75,000 people in your community? Well, of course, the $1 million answer is it's us. Is we are the ones that are the vehicles. We have that privilege and responsibility to take the gospel to that. Just on a side note, this is just you want to put the clutch in here. What's really interesting of the 25,000 people, so-called believers in your context, what we're finding is a large percentage of those people are disconnected from a local church. So even the 25% that calls themselves Christian since COVID, the number of those people who are not connected to a local church or a local fellowship or group is also extremely high. So to put it lightly, there's a lot of opportunity within that 100,000. Now, the next thing I want you to do is I want you to put a two right here. And I want you to ask the question, is there an example in scripture where this many people heard the gospel in a short period of time? So ask the group that, and you're going to hear all kinds of things: Pentecost, feeding of 5,000. But there actually is one very distinct example in the book of Acts where this many people, and actually far more, heard the message of the kingdom in a short period of time. And so I want you to turn to Acts. Have everybody in the room turn to Acts chapter 19, verses 8 through 10. And then what you want them to do at their tables or buddy up is to read that passage at their table and just make some simple observation. Give them about, I don't know, maybe about 4 minutes. It's a very tight passage. So about 3 to 4 minutes right here to read it and to make some observations on what they see happening in that passage. All right. So we come back and we ask them, how did that go? What did you learn? And the two things we want them to kind of pick out or see or at least mention is that all Asia heard the gospel. That's just crazy to think. I mean, it's like a hyperbolic statement. As best we can tell, it depends. That was between 7 and 14 million people in that part of Southwest. It's basically Turkey. 7 to 14 million people heard the gospel. Amazing thought. Now, the interesting thing is, according to Paul, it took 2 years to do that. What an amazing thought. 2 years, that many people heard the gospel in such a short period of time. Now, another big group discussion, not as a group, all the table is, how do you guys think that happened? Ask the group and let them and discuss that as a large group at this point. And you're going to hear all kinds of things. But ultimately, what we see happening here is that the gospel got to this massive area, not by a bunch of people crowding in a room and hearing one guy, but clearly this was like a pinwheel. The Hall of Tyrannus was just shooting people back out into that area in Asia Minor. And within 2 years, the whole area heard the gospel. It's an amazing thought, or something to contemplate. We have had people argue that everybody in Lower Asia there filed into the Hall of Tyrannus. That's an absolutely crazy thought. Now, what I want you to do next is I want you to put a 3 here, and we have to ask some questions, real simple questions that you're going to discuss at your table. Is what is it going to take? Just put that. We call that we make it a little bit. It's called wig take. What is it going to take for everybody in our area to hear the gospel? Okay. So I want you to discuss this at your table. When you're done discussing that, I want you to have this follow-up question. What are you willing to die to see that happen? All right. So I want you to discuss this at your table, and then we're going to come back and hear what you guys had to say. So I would give them probably about 8 minutes to talk, 8 to 10 minutes to talk about this. One of the important things is we come back from this discussion, and you're going to hear a lot of good stuff. And by the way, they're writing this all at the same time. I do just a little bit of asterisk here. I do want you to mention that our current strategies for reaching lostness in our area in this 100,000 is not working. Our current approach to church planning and outreach is not keeping up with the population growth in most urban areas of the United States. It's not even coming close. So it's safe to say that our current approach to church planning that requires buildings and money and staff and high production level is not keeping up with the population growth and the level of lostness in our area. So we need to contemplate that there needs to be multiple strategies at reaching lostness in church planning. All right. That's just a kind of little caveat. If there's somehow you can include that statement that our current approaches to church planning and reaching lostness are not keeping up with the level of lostness and the population growth in our churches. So we need to reevaluate what is it going to take in terms of church planning and lostness in our area. So that is the brutal facts. I hope that helps when you present that brutal facts at the intensive training.